All right, friends, welcome. It is week 11. Can you believe it? We are already almost 75% of the way done with this course. That's crazy. It's week 11, February 19th, 2024. Don't forget, it's leap year this year, so that's fun. I had a friend who was born on leap day, so shouts out to her. I think she turns 8 years old technically this year, so that's fun. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Discussion questions. You guys should have got an email today just to let you know your progress to where today was an official check-in with your discussion questions and your core assignments. Syed let me know in office hour that for the core assignment portion that with books ERD that wasn't showing up, and I had another student in another class. So if that's you as well, or if you at all feel like you've done some assignments and it's not showing up, but it's showing that it did, it's showing that it's submitted on time or it's submitted at all, and it's not showing up on your core assignments, always feel free to shoot me an email with that. I'll need to see a screenshot of the assignment and then the submission. But what I can do is that just says it's something with our system, and I can go to our devs. It's super rare that happens, but if that does happen, just shoot me an email, and then I can also communicate to our SEMs as well and let them know, hey, what's showing up isn't correct because this is an extra assignment. So if you do get that, feel free to shoot me that email. I want to look at what is going to go on this week. We're in week 11. You've got Dojos and Ninjas CRUD. We're going to talk a lot today. Today and this week is probably the heaviest of the next couple of weeks. This week's pretty light. This week's pretty light. And then we're starting our belt review. I know it says belt review week. These next 4 weeks are going to be a belt review. We are going to start building today what I would say is our belt review sort of assignment. We're going to do just a movie database where somebody logs in and they can add a movie. And so we're going to just sort of build that out. And so we're going to start this week with that. We're going to build it out. We're going to build out the ERD. We're going to modularize our Flask application. And then after that, we will be able to build on that, have some validations, have some login, reg, all that fun stuff. And then we'll just keep adding on. Ask really if there's any questions. Week 14, this is going to be a light week. Also, so that way you guys can get prepped for your assignments. And then the exam window will open. Now, I was talking with somebody today. I think I've said it as well. But if you get to a point where you feel like you're ready to take the exam, maybe even earlier than this week, I'm okay with that. There is some certain criteria you have to meet to even be eligible for a belt exam code. So if that is you and you're like, wow, I feel pretty good, I'm ready for this, feel free to reach out to me via email. Just say that, and then I can kind of let you know that criteria. And then once you get there, I can kind of let you have that exam code. So that's okay with me if you want to do it early. And then one thing I just, again, really want to prepare you for is the last day to start an exam is this day, 3/26. So March 26th is the last day you can start an exam. When the exam window opens here in week, at the end of week 14, so you have this weekend, and that's, so you have 2 weekends and then basically a full week and a half. You have up to 3 belt submissions. And I say up to because if you start and take your first one this weekend, and maybe, I grade it on Monday and then it needs a retake, I send you a retake code. That's your, then you can do your second one. And then maybe you take it Wednesday and I grade it by Friday. I send you a retake code. You spend the weekend and you take it and then I grade it. Cool. Right? That's you utilizing your 3. Now, the window opens here. Your code, as long as you, again, have all the criteria needed, it's just basically core assignments, a certain amount of core assignments completed. If you wait until Tuesday to start your exam, you are basically forfeiting your 3 chances, and this is your one and only shot because everything has to be submitted by Wednesday. And so if you wait to start it today, my turnaround is a minimum of 24 hours, depends on how many I get, but of belt exams. So if you wait till this last day, you're really putting yourself in a precarious situation, and you don't come to me and say, well, I have 3 chances. You have up to 3 chances, but this is the last day to start one. So if you wait and this is the first one you take, then you're only going to take one and you're sort of foregoing the other 2. So I don't foresee anybody in here doing that, but just want to let you guys know there. Cool. Great. What we're going to do today is we're going to talk about modularization, but before we do that, I want to jump into our one-to-many relationships. We should be familiar with these, so it should be a little bit more of a, kind of looking back at this. And then we'll move forward, and as we start coding it out, we're going to introduce modularization, talk about what that means, and we're going to start building out our one-to-many relationship. Now, what I can foresee happening is the modularization and the one-to-many, and maybe us starting to build will take up the most of today. And then on Wednesday, we will continue talking about what we need to have, do our join as our query. And so what I can foresee is this week, probably not an algorithm session because it's just a lot of material. I want to make sure you guys are prepped and ready. And then the following weeks are much, much lighter. Like validation is much, much easier than what we have to sort of set up. So we're going to do all the grunt work this week. And these next 2 weeks, we'll make sure we do some algorithms, and it's not too difficult there. Cool. Any questions on any of that? Cool. I just want to make sure that you guys can do Dojos and Ninjas CRUD, and we probably won't have enough time this or today to do all of it without staying over. So we'll make sure we do that on Thursday. Great. Okay, so let's hop in. I want to create a brand new diagram that I'm going to call, let's add in a new diagram. Cool. So here, this is my DB. I'm going to say belt exam DB. I'll say prep DB. Well, we'll just say belt exam DB because I don't want to type that much. Okay, so we got that. We're good to go. Cool. Belt exam DB. Let's create a table. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a table for users, and we're going to create a table for movies. We're just going to build out basically a user can go in. They can create a movie where it has the genre, the maybe director in the title. And then you could see which user created which movies, et cetera, have a user profile that has that, and so on and so forth. So if I'm going to build that, that is what we call a one-to-many relationship. Can anybody tell me how I would start that? Let's say that I get the exam and I see, okay, I have a user that I need to create, and I need to create some movies. What's your first step? What do you guys think here? What do I do?
Create the users table.
Yeah, let's create that. Cool. So let's say users. And again, I know that this is a little bit of a, the words slip in my mind, but I know that refresher, I know it's a little bit of a refresher, but let's say we want first name, last name, email, and password, because we're going to want to hash the password and all that fun stuff. What are the other columns I'm going to need?
You need an ID.
Yeah, I need
to create it at, update it at.
Yeah, exactly. My ID is int. It's of type int. We have it's my primary key. It cannot be null, and I need to auto increment that. Here I've got a first name. Varchar, we'll make that, I don't know, 105. We'll make a last name. Make that 105. Some people have long names. I do not, but some people do. We'll want to have an email. Oops. Let's see. What do we want that to be? Do we want it to be varchar? We want it to be a long? Yeah, we'll just do a varchar. That's fine. And let's do maybe 255 and then a password. Now, when we, and we're going to talk about this in 2 weeks when we talk about login and registration. But for our password, we typically are going to want it to be a minimum of 8 characters, right? But one thing we have to plan for is, some people have 20-character passwords or whatever that is. But when we hash our password, again, we're going to talk about this in 2 weeks, it can elongate our password quite a bit because that's what we're doing is we're adding extra text. And so whenever we're building this out, that way we don't have to go back and reverse engineer and forward engineer. I'm going to make this pretty long. I'm going to say it can go up to 200. And then none of these can be null. Perfect. Great. And then we need our created app. Just like Gregory said. This is going to be a date type. Default expression, we right click, we say current timestamp. And then we haven't updated that. Again, it's going to be, oops. Oh, I messed that up. Daytime. Okay, again, we right click. And we say default on update current timestamp. Cool. Now, I accidentally clicked that was the primary key, but I'm glad it did not undo that. Cool. So my user table looks good. But I've got my first name, my last name, my email, my password, created at, updated at. Now I want to create my movie table. So let's go do that. I'm going to call this movies. Also needs a ID. Primary key. Yep, auto increments. Then maybe want title. Change that to 105. We want a genre. And maybe we could do like, no, 60. I can't imagine a genre being more than 60. And then maybe we have a director. Now I just made a little bit of an error. See how I have this space? If I didn't have that, or if I didn't catch that, this is where we save the ERDs, right? Is because if I didn't catch that and I went and created it, everything was good, I forward engineered, then what's going to happen is whenever I go to try to actually save something, it's not going to work, right? And so I want to make sure that that's why we have that ERD, because then I could go back, delete that one thing, forward engineer it again, and then we are A-okay. We'll go to 105 here. And then we'll have our created at. Didn't know why that didn't. Daytime, we right click. Current timestamp and our update that. Cool.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So we can either put now expression or current time stamp, right?
Yeah. So if we didn't put this in the actual code, we need the now.
Mhm.
But because we put this, we don't have to put that in the code. So it's totally up to you.
Okay.
This way is way easier.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I like this because it's just one less thing I have to type. My code is a little bit lighter. And it just, I let SQL handle it for me.
Sure.
Cool.
I also have a question.
Yeah.
Are we not going to not know
Yeah, we
these
can.
categories, or
We can. No, we totally can. Cool. Good. Okay, now the way I want this to set up is a user can create as many movies as they want, but a movie can only be created as it can only be created by one user. So that is where our one to many comes in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to our one to many. I'm going to click this. And here you can see I click on the many side first. And you see this little pitchfork. I always think about that as like the M. And that's facing the many side. And so what you can also see is that in this, it creates this foreign key for us. I'm going to change to user ID, but it creates this foreign key for us that allows us to know, okay, we are taken care of. This is associated to, this is what associates a movie to a user. Now, when I come here and I do foreign keys, I'm going to say on delete. On delete, I'm going to do cascade, meaning that if I delete my user, I'm going to delete the movies as well, right? You don't have to do that. Like you might have you might have something that you want the movie to exist even if the user deletes its profile. You think of like Reddit. Sometimes a comment can stay though the movie or the user is deleted. Sorry, not movie. The user is deleted. You don't have to have this cascade on delete for what we're doing. Do that, but you don't have to. I mean, there's use cases for both, so you want to think about that. But all this means is, hey, if the user that is associated to this movie that created it is deleted, delete all the remaining information as well.
Can you do that one more time?
Yeah, of course. So what you do is here you have your columns. This is kind of what we see. You go down here to foreign keys. Then you're going to click on the foreign key name. This is the foreign key movies users. Really what this is just saying is this is the foreign key that it automatically creates for us. We didn't do anything there. It says users ID, preference column ID. So this is just showing me. And then I come here, this foreign key options on delete. I just say cascade.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And now I've created my database, or I've created my sort of ERD that I can now create my database. Any questions? I'm going to pause there because this is an important step. Any questions on any of this?
Yes. So there is two of those M thing, which was one with N. And does it mean the same thing?
Oh, yeah, great question. I don't remember exactly what. I know that this is an identifying relationship and non-identifying. I don't know. I don't remember the kind of nuance between the two. If you used either, I would say use the identifying one. So just not the dash, the full line. But because that's what I've always used. I don't remember exactly. We can look that up after class, or I can look it up tomorrow in my spare time and try to understand or try to remember what that is. But yeah, use the full line here.
Sounds good.
Hey Bill,
Yeah.
do we have to put a primary key on like foreign key one?
Yeah. So sorry. Yeah. Yeah. This has a
No, on user ID? It should be
oh, I see.
yeah, primary key.
So it automatically did that. I believe we do because it's a primary key for this. Let's check. Let's go back. That's no problem. You don't have to know everything, my friends. Let's check. It doesn't show it here. Let's check it out. Well, it's many to many. I think because it automatically created it, but I'm with you. I think I'm not sure that I need that. Let's do this. Because I don't think we do need that. I'm going to take that off. Because it's not a primary key.
Do we have to make it singular for users?
It did do that. I'm wondering if that's what happened. Yeah. So I did do that. That's interesting. Okay. And that automatically took me to a non-identifying. So let's try this. Okay. So it looks like because I clicked this one, I'll do some research on exactly what was going on there. I'm gonna keep this as is because if I take the primary key off, I've always done the solid line. And if I take the primary key off, it takes it to the dash line. So I'm gonna keep that on. If we run into some issues, I'll make sure I save the CRD. And if we run into some issues, we can always come back and forward engineer it. Meanwhile, I'll also do some research tomorrow. So let's save model. To desktop. Belt exam, NWB. Or belt exam DB. Now you always want to do this because especially in the exam, I'm gonna have to take this and forward engineer it. Or else I have to build it out. And so a part of the, in order for you to pass it, you have to send this. So you do need to practice saving that as well. Now, if you're on a Mac, then you need to talk to me because we need to figure out a different plan for you. Okay, so let's forward engineer. Cool, I got 4 check marks. We are good to go. If I go home. Cool, I have my belt exam DB. I have my multiple tables, I have my movies, and I've got my users. Perfect. Let's go ahead and actually go into the code. I talked about this. I said that we're going to talk about this, but what we've done so far is create what we call a monolithic application where everything is really existing within the server PY. We have a couple things here and there. We have our model, but all of our sort of functionality, all of our work, if you will, is living within our server PY, and we're going to actually change that. We're going to change that, and what we call modularize it, and all that really is instead of making everything into one big file, we're going to break it up and categorize different files, so that way, you know, we have everything separate. Can anybody think of maybe why we would want to do that? What is the advantage versus having just one large file that had everything? Because as we saw, it worked. So what would maybe be an advantage of modularization compared to what we done?
Maybe just to stay organized with our code.
Yeah, organization, absolutely.
Also seems like it'd make it easier to split parts off with other team members, like other divisions, perhaps on a bigger project.
Yeah, exactly, Liam. 100%. Yeah, it really breaks it
My
up.
mind went to if
Go ahead, Gregory.
oh, I was just saying my mind went to if something got corrupted or
Mhm.
something.
Yeah, that could be it. Yeah, I think all of those are solid reasons. One of the kind of ideas is everything used to be, again, monolithic is the kind of key word there, where everything used to be in one really big file. And what happens is it makes it really challenging, like you said, to all work on the same file, just like Liam said. Makes it hard to kind of divide that. B, it makes it hard to sort of, you know, if you're dealing with variables, if you're dealing with certain things that maybe have a first name, maybe I've got a user and, you know, something else, a worker, maybe they're two different things. They're dealing with first names and kind of get weird when you're dealing with variables and scope. But then also if you are trying to, if you have a bug, right, you're going to have bugs. Anytime you write code, you're always going to have a bug. But if you have everything broken down into a, you know, a user model, a movie model. So if you know that, okay, there's a bug with my movie, I don't have to siphon through all this code that has all my models and all my stuff that, oh, there's the movie, you know, let me go back and forth. I can just go and I click and I know exactly where that file is. So it compartmentalizes everything. So it makes debugging much, much easier than having one big file. So let's kind of walk through what we have to do there in order for us to modularize. So we have everything in a server PY. This is kind of what we had as our unmodularized code here, where we had our MySQL connection, we had our model, that's what Burger PY is. We had our environment, and then we have our server PY. And this is what it's going to end up looking like, where we're going to have a folder for models, a folder for controllers. Controllers is just functionality. And then we're going to have a model for our config, and then we have our actual application as well. So step one is we need to create the actual app folder. Now, I've got here, I have week 11. I'm going to say dir. Cool. And all we have is just this class overview MD. You can see that here. That's all we have here. So let's go ahead and we're going to follow this just so that, that way we can see that. Type clear. Nope. Okay. So we're going to follow this. So that way we can do that. I'm actually going to do this on Git Bash. Just give me 1 second. Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. Let me make this a little bit bigger for you guys. Okay. So let's go ahead and create this application. Right now, all I have is that file. So I'm going to say mkdir, and I'm going to say belt exam app. Okay, great. So once I do that, I see that I created that app. I need to, and this doesn't say, but I first need to navigate into that app. What was that? So anybody remember how to navigate into my app?
Is that CD with the folder name?
Yeah, exactly. CD and then belt exam. Perfect. Now what I need to do is I need to create that. Now I could just use that here. Like I could come here, click that. That's a-okay if you were to do that. I'm going to do it here just because I like to practice. And I want you guys to practice the terminal. So in Git Bash, I'm going to say touch,
Yeah.
and I'm going to say dunder. So that's just 2 underscores init dunder.py. And if I ls, you see that I'm in my belt exam app and I've got my dunder init py there. Cool. So now I'm going to move my templates. I don't have a templates. This is kind of taking it from here, but I don't have that. So let's go ahead and make a templates. I'm going to mkdir, that's make a directory. I'm going to say templates. I type ls. And we see, okay, great. We have that. That's awesome. And then if we have a static as well, I'm not going to do any sort of CSS, but if I wanted to, I just say mkdir static. And I have that as well. Cool. What we want to do is let's hop in to our code and we're going to add this stuff in there. So in my init py, I'm going to copy this. Let's open this up. And I'm going to, oops. I copied nothing. Copy. Cool. So I'm going to say from Flask, import Flask, app name, dunder name, or app equal Flask dunder name, secret key, I'm going to say pizza's life. That's mine. Okay. Though the older I get, the less pizza agrees with me.
Real quick, I just had a question about the secret key.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want us to be using a specific one so you get access to it?
Nope. You have, well, when you give me your code, you're going to have access. If you're using like a .env file, then maybe. But if you're just going to send me, you're going to send me your code and then you should have, it should be it's okay for right now if it's just shows like this.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say don't use .env. I'll show you how to do that in week 15. Don't use .env for the exam. Just kind of put this here, but then I'll show you in week 15 how we can not do that. If that makes sense. Cool. Great. So we crushed that. Now in my server PY, I need to have I need to add this line. So instead of saying what we typically had is we would have, if we looked at our server PY. It's not here. We've had basically a lot of that in there. Right, we had all of that information that we then moved from our init PY. Here, I'll just do this. It's a little bit easier. Here in my server PY, we had all of this information, right? We had all of our routing and our methodology. We had this app equals Flask name. We had this from Flask import Flask. We are now going to change that, right? Because a lot of that stuff is now in my init PY. So let me take that off the screen. Cool. So here we can see we've got, here's our folders, our functionality. We've got our server PY. So let's now backtrack again. So I'm going to say touch. Awesome. Now I need to say pip env shell. Right, I need to create, oops. I need to create my environment. And this is all within my week 11. So I'm going to say pip env install. What are our two things so far that we need to install?
Last.
Flask. And then what's the second one?
By MySQL.
Exactly, PyMySQL. Okie doke. Cool. So now if we look in this, look at our code. We see we've got my server PY, my belt exam, my app. Cool. From Flask, import Flask. We should be good to go now. App equals secret key. And then my server PY. Instead of having all of this information here, right? All we do is we're going to move, and then we're just going to say this. We're going to add in this line. From Flask app, but it's not Flask app. It's called belt exam import app. Now, because my server PY is on the same level as my belt exam, what I'm saying is go into my belt exam. And then what it's going to do is it's going to have this app right here, and I'm going to grab this. So it's automatically doing it for me. That's what this line is doing. It's just saying from that belt exam, grab that. And then I still have my if name under main app.run debug true. Cool. Everybody does that make sense right here, this line? Instead of having Flask and bringing that in, that exists here, and I just go in and grab it within my server PY. This file becomes pretty bare bones. Any questions on that? Cool.
So you're basically just telling it, look in this file instead
Yep.
of rewriting the code.
Exactly. Because then, well, the reason is because if I have, you know, multiple things that want to refer to that, I can, right? I'm taking it out. I'm saying, okay, I only want my server. I want that to be as bare bones as possible because that's my actual server, right? And then it can connect and talk to different portions of that. Cool. Also, what we're going to do is what we typically had. I'm just going to keep this kind of here. Is we had our templates, which we've moved out. We have our movie PY, which is my model, right? My MySQL connection and my server PY had all of that functionality. Again, we're going to abstract that out and we're going to have it all in a different way where we have our config folder, and that's going to set up that's where our MySQL connection file is going to live. Our controller is going to handle all of our functionality. And then our model, well, we haven't worked with model yet, but that's what we'll end up having a models as well. That's going to handle all of our models. So when we have a user and a movie, we can just have a user.py and a movie.py. So let's go ahead and build that out. And this is all within. So right now I need to go into my belt exam. In that, I just currently have my static folder, my templates. What I need to do is I need to mkdir controllers, handles my functionality, my config folder, which is going to handle the configuration of my database, my models. Again, when I say mkdir and I put a space, I put the folder name. And if I put another space and another name, it's going to treat that as a second folder and a third folder. So now I have all of these folders here. All these folders here. Cool. Let's hop in to the actual code. Are there any questions of this? Anything that's stressful? Any sort of anything there? You guys doing okay?
Doing all right.
Cool. Nothing that's not on the platform, but just want to make sure you guys are okay. Okay. So let's jump in here to the config because that's a little bit the easiest. I'm gonna click on it. There's nothing in there. I'm gonna create a MySQL connection .py. Same thing that we always do. Right? This is the same connection file. We're just putting it in our config. Same connection file, we're just putting it in our config. Cool. Now, when we get to our actual controller, that is the meat, that's the meat and potatoes kind of our server, right? Of our application, of our backend. So that's where a lot of the stuff that we have in the server PY, we're going to grab a lot of that and put it in our controller file. So what we'll do is we are going to come here. And for right now, I'm gonna create both, but we're only gonna kind of work on our users for the first one. I'm gonna create users, and you want to pluralize that. One of the ways also that's really nice is if you know that it's plural, if you're kind of working on a file and you have a bunch of them open, if it's like user, 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 you're like, is this my model? Is this my controller? What is this? But if you have it plural, say movies.py. Cool. So I have both of those. Let's get rid of that one. We'll get rid of that one. Get rid of that. Perfect. Now, in our actual controller, we're going to have all of our app routes. We haven't built any yet. I guess ideally we could have built it out and then modularize it, but that's okay. So what we want to do is we want to have all of this code in our file. So what we'll do is we're going to say from Flask app. Now, again, if you change the name here, we're going to, it needs to be changed. So for us, it's not going to say from Flask app. And I'll just do it in one and then we can kind of do it in another user. So I'll say from Belt Exam app, import app. Cool. Great. We're also going to say, and again, this is where we have all of our information. So we have render template, we have redirect, request, session. We don't need Flash. But I can say from Flask import, render template. That's probably what they did. Cool. Because this is where I'm going to use. This is all of my functionality, right? Just taking the meat and potatoes of my server py file, and it's going to be here. It's going to be in this file. And then lastly is we are going to have a, we're going to have a models. We're going to have a model. We're going to have like a user model. But this is incorrect. We're going to say from model, it's going to say user, import user. And what that means is we're going to have a user. This is going to be singular. And this is going to have our class of user. We don't have that yet, but I can say from. And the reason I say that this is wrong is we're currently in the same sphere, right? When our controller is in the same level of our model. So I can say from user import user. Now it's going to give me an error because that, well, first I got to spell import, right? That doesn't exist. That's okay. We don't have that yet. But we're good to go. Now in my server PY, I say from, this is going to be the line that we had. We say from belt exam.controllers, because we're not on the same level now. I have to go into that. So I say from belt exam. Just users. Now this is saying, hey, go into my belt exam. In my belt exam, go into my controllers folder. And there, I want to grab the users. We could say also moves because we're going to. Okay. Now there's a lot of setup, friends. We haven't even coded anything really. And then lastly, what we'll do is we're going to come here and in my model, we'll actually set it up. I'm going to say, we look at this. We're bringing in from Flask app, or in this case, belt exam app .config.mysql connection. Bring in connect to MySQL. Now I'm kind of wondering if in the same way we didn't need, oh, I'm going to say the same thing. Same way we didn't need belt exam for our controller. We'll test this out. We'll kind of see whichever one, because I'm thinking for this one, we just did from belt exam, or sorry, from user import user. So we'll see if we need to go belt exam to controller or belt exam to models to user, like we do here. Belt exam to config to MySQL connection, or if we could just say, from user import user. So we'll test it out. Okay. And so now that we have that MySQL connection, I can create my class user. The class user is going to have a couple pieces of information, right? It has my dunder init, it's in self and data. So I'm going to say, we look. First name, last name, email, password, created at, updated at. Cool. So now our code is modularized. It is all broken down. We've got stuff in my models. We don't have any templates yet. We've got it, my connection file in my config. We have my users PY and movies PY in my controller. That's my functionality, my sort of meat and potatoes. And then we have my user. We'll have the same thing. We'll have a movie.py. That's going to do the same thing. Look the same way. Where we have all of my movie functionality. Just bring this in up there. And this is kind of the hard, like this is the hard setup part. One thing I will say is for your exam, what I would say is, you know that there's going to be a lot of this that is going to be plug and play, right? You know that you're going to have these folders. You know that you're going to have usually an index.html. You know you're going to have a controller. You're definitely going to have this config file. So you can come prepped and ready for that. You're going to have a login and registration. And so you can even, in theory, have your user model built before you even get there. I'm okay with that. The only thing you'll have to do is go in and maybe I ask for an age versus, just email. To where then you would have to go to your ERD, right? You would have age here. You would add in, self.age. You would have to adjust it that way, but you can see that this is quite, it took up most of the class for us to modularize and build this out. You can come with a lot of this pre-built. Actually, most of this pre-built. Cool. I'm going to pause there. Are there any questions on what we did? We talked about the one-to-many relationship. We built out our models. We modularized all of our code. Are there any questions on what we did today? Okay. I actually think I'm going to stop it there because what we'll end up doing is just building this out. And we're just going to build out our user, basically, our user and model at and movie at the beginning. But because it's all going to be, kind of reflection or a refresher, just because we just did created at and updated at, or not created at, updated, sorry, we just did CRUD the last 2 weeks. We'll kind of go quickly through it. And then what we'll focus on is the one-to-many relationship there. So I'm going to pause class there. If you guys have any questions, happy to answer them. And if not, I'll kind of let you guys out a little bit early, just because I think we're at a good kind of natural stopping point, and jumping into more code doesn't necessarily make sense.
No questions for me. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Okay. Any questions at all? If not, I'll stop the recording and then we can kind of end the night. Okay. We'll stop the recording there. I hope you guys have a wonderful night. Take care, everybody.